I never saw a good-looking black woman. In this retweet, how you a slim, tender...
Wow! Wow! This is vicious. I never... Listen, look, even Myron Gaines has admitted that he's seen good-looking black women, and that nigga one of the most racist anti-black women that we've ever seen on the internet. And here, Rory saying, I've never seen a good-looking black woman. For sure. Rory tried to explain it only made things worse. Video by The Company, man. Now, let me give you a little bit of a backstory here, or let you know what's happening. This guy, Rory, from the podcast Rory and Mal, super big Drake dick rider, Kendrick Lamar hater, along with his podcast host and raccoon, Mal. They used to work for Joe Budden on the Joe Budden podcast. They had a falling out. They got fired, some shit like that. They started their own podcast. Everyone thought they were going to fail. And then they actually started off doing pretty well. And then things have kind of, leveled out. And Joe Budden continues to be far more successful than them. But what's interesting is some old tweets have come out from Rory showing that this man was a blatant racist. And then he goes on Twitter Spaces to address it, and he actually makes it worse by being condescending, an asshole, not apologizing. It's all nasty, man. And so this guy, he was a racist piece of shit. He has infiltrated black culture. He's made himself wealthy off of the back of black art and black people, only to see that, prior to that, this man was letting the whole world know that he don't fuck with black people, especially black women. So let's go ahead and check this out.
The next thing I knew, my timeline was flooded with old tweets and posts from Rory, seemingly from Rory, saying and retweeting things like this. I never saw a good-looking black woman. In this retweet, how you a slim, tender...
Wow! You can't be in hip hop, be a media personality in hip hop, spreading this kind of racist anti-black woman nastiness. This is vicious. Listen, look, even Myron Gaines has admitted that he's seen good-looking black women, and that nigga one of the most racist anti-black women that we've ever seen on the internet. And here, Rory saying, I've never seen a good-looking black woman. For sure.
Yellowbone, but your mom's a fat bitch tar baby. Nah, B, some don't add up.
Wait. How you slim tender, yellowbone, but your mom's a fat bitch tar baby? Nah, B, some don't add up. I want no parts. And Rory retweeted that. Let's make some room to acknowledge, one, he was 24, not a kid, but you're still pretty immature at that point in time. He's white. He's very white, which means he most certainly grew up with anti-black ideas, anti-black sentiments. I dare say the majority of white people growing up in America grow up partially racist. They might not be full-blown, I hate black people using the hard R, but they grew up with a lot of anti-black and racist beliefs against black people, even while having black friends or maybe even dating a black girl. Now, Rory right here says he's never seen a good-looking black woman, and so we see how far gone he was at that point in time. That's actually still a pretty crazy racist thing to say, even in 2014. Definitely at the age of 24. He was a full-blown racist at this point. He would have been a groiper. If he was around, if he was 24 now, he would be a MAGA Republican groiper. There's no question about it. And it's important to note, I do not like these guys. I really do not like Rory and Mal. I've never liked them, especially Mal. I've always thought that guy was a fucking weirdo. I never liked him on the Joe Budden podcast. I liked Rory more. But as they've gone off and done their own thing and they're doing the just insane level of Drake dick riding and propaganda, I've grown to dislike these guys a lot more since then. So please do not misunderstand me. I am not running cover at all. I am not defending at all this piece of shit guy right here. However, we can acknowledge that people can grow and change. He didn't choose to be born white. He didn't choose to be born raised by racists and then raised around other racist kids and then became a racist himself. And like so many of these white people who grow up racist, right? Okay, maybe in his mid-20s, he got some education. He became enlightened. He deconstructed his racism. And so he isn't like this anymore, right? So let's say that's the most charitable thing, I think, the most charitable position we can hold. Let's see how he handles this going forward, how he handled this whole situation, these tweets resurfacing. Let's see how he dealt with that.
I want no parts. And there wasn't a comb on the video set for Blue Ivy's hair?
God damn, nigga. You talking about Blue Ivy's hair, nigga? Like, bro, this is literally right before you just start dropping the hard R on Twitter. You got to understand that when you are saying I ain't never seen a good looking black woman, when you're criticizing black girls' hair as a white man, just understand this is a white person who is literally a fucking racist and is like literally one step below just going full-blown groiper and using the hard R on Twitter. That's who this guy was in 2014. All right, let's keep it pushing.
Now, I have a few personal defaults that I just expect out of people and online discourse, and one of those is that I'm never shocked when a white person's old racially charged posts resurface on the internet.
Yeah,
now, I've been
bro, honestly, it's not even their fault, bro. I honestly believe when you're white and you grew up in a white supremacist society, you're going to grow up racist, but there are levels to it. Okay, you have at the very bottom zero racism. You're fully woke. You're an ally. You understand the black struggle to some degree. You are empathetic to black people. You see through the racist bullshit, right? This is a fully enlightened white person. Then at level 100, you have Nick Fuentes. Okay, you have Nick Fuentes. You have Donald Trump. You have the Hitler even, right? Even though Hitler focused more on Jewish people, but he sent black people to concentration camps as well. So if you're a black guy who is like pro-Hitler, you're actually a fucking idiot, an imbecile of the highest order if you're a groiper, a black groiper. But the point I'm making, if you're born white in America, it's like you almost certainly will not start at zero, bro. You're not going to start at zero. You're going to start. I mean, a lot of black people don't start at zero, as sad as that is to acknowledge that a lot of black people even have to unlearn and deconstruct the racist programming that's put in them. So certainly a white person, you're not starting off at zero unless you're like born to very liberal, very progressive white parents, college educated, probably have a graduate degree, and they raise you in a diverse like community, and so growing up they're teaching you properly. You're playing with Latinos and blacks and Asians at school, and so you just don't grow up with that shit. I think that's a very small minority of white people in this country. The grand majority of them, they're starting somewhere between 25 and 100. So like company man here is saying, I'm not surprised about this. What matters is how he handles this situation. That will tell us everything. Let's continue.
Plenty of spaces throughout my life where I was the only black person or one of few black people. And through my experience, white people will get as comfortable as you allow them to be.
Right.
And all of them at some point push the line to see what you will let them get away with.
Yeah.
It's not always malicious, oftentimes it's ignorance, but that train is always on time. So when old tweets resurface like what's happening right now with Rory's, when these things happen, particularly at that point in internet history in the early teens when social media rewarded people for saying the most rude and crude and racist things imaginable, for me, it's expected. And when these things flare up, for me, at that point, it's all about how you handle it.
Exactly.
How you take accountability, how you attempt to make amends, especially when your career includes being a part of black spaces. The easiest thing for anyone to do when they've offended someone or if they've upset a community for one reason or another is to give a sincere, succinct apology and take accountability for the impact your actions had on others and move forward. It's so simple.
Right.
Sincere, succinct, accountability.
Now, people are still going to fire on you. People are still going to, you know what I'm saying, let you have it. You're going to lose fans. You're going to have people who just don't like you as a result of this, even if you give a sincere apology and you take accountability, but it is the right thing to do. Not for the sake of seeking validation, forgiveness, or permission, because when you seek those things from the internet, well, that's a fucking, well, yeah, good luck with that shit, right? But for the sake of allowing the people who are actually in a place who are willing to receive it and hear it, for them to see you acknowledge that that was wrong, that's not who I am, this is what was wrong with it, and this is where I stand now, and, you know what I'm saying, condemn anyone speaking like that today, right? You grew, you mature, you were a product of your environment and your background and all of that. That's all understandable. Nobody is the same today as they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And if we're all honest, we can find shit from our past that we have thought, believed, or said that we would be absolutely embarrassed by or, you know, infuriated by if we had to look or hear that shit again. I know I'm no fucking saint, right? And nobody watching this is a saint either. What matters is, who are you today? And I think the way that Rory handles this situation will reveal who he is.
But Rory didn't do that. Instead, he jumped into Rocky's Twitter space, which was about Kendrick and clips. He hijacked someone else's Twitter space and spent hours, perhaps unintentionally, antagonizing a population of people hurt by what they just discovered about his Twitter history. When asked if he meant the things he said about black women and Beyonce, he snickered and offered sarcasm.
How much I hate black women and how I have specifically just targeted you in our company to make sure that you are devalued and never mind. I'm gonna chill.
When asked if he was
nigga laughing and shit, he joking about this shit. Nigga, you meant all that racist shit you said. You think this shit is something to laugh about?
Deleting old tweets, he gaslighted and accused a woman of being racist.
Why were you hiding your tweet?
Hide what tweet?
Oh, now you don't know. Rocky, I said
Hey, yo, dog, I got a question for you right quick,
literally
Rory.
right here.
You know Blue Weave is not Blue Ivy. That's racist as fuck.
Rory.
When asked if he would retweet any of those things again, he said this.
Which ones?
Any of them.
I said
the ones that everybody's offended by.
One or two I've said I've joked about on the podcast already. I've definitely talked about the Beyonce thing on the podcast before.
See how he fucked it up.
But she's asking you today, Rory, today, not 7 years.
This is a layup right here, man. This is a layup.
Rory, you gotta have better answers. Come on, bro.
Jesus Christ.
The spaces went on for hours, pretty much just like this, but that's a sample. Now, I don't have a relationship with Rory, full disclosure, and truthfully, I'm not a consistent watcher of Rory and Mal, nor was I consistently watching when they were on the Joe Budden podcast. Most of my interactions with their content is through clips. And with that said, I wouldn't say I've ever taken anything that I've seen from him previously as racist or even really culturally offensive.
You know what? I would agree. Not a fan, but from what I've heard, because I used to listen to the Joe Budden podcast all the time, until this, I never heard anything Rory say that was like, that sounds a bit anti-black right there. Never heard anything like that.
My point of view, he's done solid work on multiple fronts and advocated for a range of under-discussed artists and for hip-hop culture as a whole in a respectable manner. But I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on his work. That's why I was shocked to find out we were both members of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I don't know what I expected to hear when I went into that Twitter Spaces Wednesday night, but what I do know is the way that Rory sounded in that Twitter space, the way he conducted himself, felt like the way those controversial old racially charged tweets read. He looked like someone who would say those things, who espoused the opposite of the values of the fraternity he represents. Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity.
I think he's racist, bro. I think he's racist. He's a culture vulture. He's a leech. He's a parasite on the black community. Why? Because he should have such a level of contempt and disgust for those past positions and for those past tweets that would then reveal that he truly has changed. You know what I'm saying? Look, I tell you guys all the time, don't seek validation from anybody. And the more you try to chase something, the more it eludes you. And so I think it's a vain attempt for any influencer who runs into a situation where their past has come up to haunt them, where they're constantly in this just on their knees, please forgive me, please love me. You know, a lot of those people who are saying that shit, they don't like you already to begin with, and they just love you, giving them a reason to justify their hatred of you even more. But if something controversial from your past comes up and your audience is like, what the fuck is this? You really only have two options. Either you don't acknowledge it and don't address it, and that takes balls, but you know, it is a viable option. We see people do it all the time. Politicians do it, celebrities do it, they just don't address it, and eventually people move on and forget about it. But your second option, if you are going to address it, would to just be direct, succinct, to the point, and honest. Not for the sake of seeking validation from people, but just speak to the situation honestly about where you were and where you are now, how you feel about those things from the past. Apologize to anybody who feels hurt by it, and then you keep it pushing, because at that point you've addressed it. You know what I'm saying? All that needs to be said has been said, and you let the chips fall where they may. Maybe you lose some fans, maybe you gain some fans, maybe nothing happens. At that point, though, you're done with the situation. What Rory has done, however, in him coming on and being disrespectful, condescending, joking about it, making light of the situation, what it does is it reveals that he doesn't really see the shit from the past as being as bad as what it really was. Rory is showing that he's not truly an ally to black people. He doesn't deserve to be in this space. As a white person operating within black culture, it's not enough for you to not be racist. You have to be an ally. You have to be an anti-racist. For instance, I consider myself an ally to women and feminism, right? As a result of me becoming more progressive as I've gotten older and gotten more educated and deconstructed the bigotry that, you know, I came up with in terms of just sexism and, you know, growing up Christian and becoming even more religious in my 20s. And I now see how harmful and bigoted the way I used to think in regards to women, for instance, how harmful and how bad and how wrong and sexist it was. And in so doing, I've committed to being an ally to women. So let's take the phrase, believe all women, right? Now, of course, I am a firm believer in innocent until proven guilty. However, I now understand why people say believe all women. It's acknowledging that women have been on the back foot for forever. Right? Because of the patriarchal system that we're born into, you have to understand we are born into a world where a woman's word is not as meaningful or as powerful as a man's word. It's gotten a lot better within recent history, but you know, that really only started with the Me Too movement. I think the Me Too movement marks a period in history where society as a whole, we need to acknowledge that women have been subjected to all kinds of abuse and mistreatment for no other reason than the fact that they're women. And because of that, they are not taken as seriously. I mean, not too long ago, you used to be able to hit your wife and the cops show up at the door and you just say, hey, you know, she got a little mouthy, and the cops say, okay, all right, well, y'all go ahead and handle that. You know, sometimes you got to rough them up a little bit. That wasn't that long ago when in America, that was the way in which women, the abuse of women was handled. That's how it was handled for a very long time. It didn't matter. I mean, we used to sell women. You used to buy your wife. You give the father of a woman some money, you give him some cattle, you give it, and now this person is your wife. No consent. That's where we're coming from. And so we've made a lot of progress where that is concerned. But the point I'm making is in acknowledging that reality and that history, you give women the benefit of the doubt because of the history of oppression that they have faced. The only way people in groups that are oppressed make progress in defeating bigotry is if when people from the group that usually does the oppressing start to lock arms and stand up for and support those people that are oppressed. So for instance, take a look at the civil rights movement. That shit didn't really become what it became until white people started to participate and even started to be killed in the name of fighting for civil rights. It wasn't until a white progressive man's blood was spilled by white supremacist racists that the entire country started to pay attention, and white people everywhere started to say, no, this is wrong. And so for women to overcome the sexism that they have been battling against, it takes men standing up for them and taking their side. And when you think about it, that's what it really means to be an ally. It's no differently than how you treat your friends, right? Until if somebody accuses your friend of doing something, or if your friend accuses somebody else of doing something, you take their side until hard evidence comes out that proves that they're lying. It also signals to the women that you're really on their side, because when you can say something like believe all women, you're also saying, hey, I operate in a way, I live my life in such a way where it is incredibly unlikely that a woman will ever come forward and accuse me of doing some shit like that. Because if you're preaching believe all women and you are sexually assaulting women, then when a woman comes out and accuses you of doing that very thing, well, then now you're fucked. Now you're fucked. And so only a man, unless he's a fucking idiot like Donald Trump with the Epstein files, only a man who really is living that shit where he is respecting women and not abusing women and not taking advantage of women, only a man like that could have the balls to really say believe all women. Rory clearly still doesn't get it. He doesn't get the black struggle, and he doesn't understand or appreciate how problematic, how damaging racism has been to black people and still is to black people to this day. Because if he was, he would have handled this conversation far differently. And it is for that reason why I believe that no black person should continue to embrace this guy. He is nothing more than an opportunistic vulture that is trying to take advantage of black culture to enrich himself while not giving a fuck about the people who actually create this art, and clearly doesn't appreciate what black people have gone through in order to be the people that we are, so that we can create and produce the art that we produce.
And then down the line, try to tell a black woman she's racist in a public Twitter space because she's calling you out over old racially charged posts that you made.
Yeah.
Whether sarcastic or otherwise, it's crazy. And especially crazy to hear from a noob. It was way past fan base wars at that point. There were nearly 1,000 people listening. And regardless of any of our work and contributions to media and music and culture, we can't expect people to know who we are, our intentions, and our origin stories. Anti-blackness in all forms, in my opinion, should be expensive, costly. So I'm not mad at anyone offended by what happened with Rory this week, because people will only take things as seriously as we take them. We have to set the line. We set the standard. I said the same in my video about Tyler, the Creator. From where I'm sitting, it seems like a large portion of his life has been steeped in black culture and black spaces. And I'd like to think Rory isn't a racist, but if I had to make a bet, I wouldn't say Rory is racist at all. If I had to make a bet. We operate off the information we're given.
I think you're racist. I don't think he's Nick Fuentes racist, but remember that scale that I said earlier, the 0 to 100? This man is not at 0, bro. He is not.
And Rory unfortunately gave nearly 1,000 people in that Twitter spaces that night, 1,000 people, reason to believe the tweets he was trying to deflect from were actually representative of his character, of his podcast, and of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated.
So that's a situation with Rory. And unfortunately, I think one of the effects of the trauma that we have all collectively sustained as black people is that we don't respect ourselves enough. Take a look at the Jews, right? They will label you an anti-Semite just because you're not a Zionist, just because you're against the genocide that is being done against the people in Palestine. That alone is enough to mark you and have you labeled as an anti-Semite that must be avoided and called out. But you can have a man making light of some very disgusting anti-black tweets and they'll just brush it off like it's not a big deal. You have to understand, people will not respect you until you respect yourself. As a black person, you need to understand that you are deserving of the utmost respect, the most respect, actually. As a black person, you have had to overcome things, or your ancestors have had to overcome things that nobody else can relate to in this country. Nobody else, no other demographic of people have had to overcome what black people have had to overcome. No other group in this country is discriminated against in the way that black people are discriminated against in this country, in this world, in Western culture as a whole. And so I truly believe any black person that continues to follow and support these guys and you know, Rory and Mal and think that this shit is okay, you have some self-hatred in you. You don't respect yourself. You don't appreciate the people that you've come from, man. The stock that you come from, what people have had to do and endure so that you can have the luxury to not think that racism and anti-blackness, not being taken seriously by a white person in your space, is a big deal. But you let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out.